Hello and welcome to another Buckeye Review News Update. I wanted to today talk a little bit about post-election results and talk about Ohio. Obviously, Buckeye Review is the Buckeye State. We're Youngstown, Warren since 1937. We have subscribers in 200 cities and 26 states, been around since 1937. We're excited about that. We're excited about all of our listeners, our readers, and our followers. And I'm also excited about our guest today because we have Representative Michele Lepore-Hagan. She is the representative from the 59th Ohio District. And I wanted to talk to you today, Michele, about Ohio.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for having me on today. I really appreciate an opportunity to talk about what is happening because we are right behind the front lines, and you know, in the legislature, a lot has been going on. I'm in my final year of my term. I've served for 4 terms, which is I'll be term limited after this, and I serve in the 58th district, which is now gone. There is no longer a 58th district like we had. A beautiful district, actually, because it was all of Youngstown, Struthers, Camel, Coatesville, Louisville, and most of Austintown. So it was concise and really it was easy to work in this district because it was similar. You know, we had similar needs, and that's why the drawing of a district is really imperative, because as a legislator, then you can listen to what the constituents need. And when you have a contiguous group, a district, that's how you legislate in a meaningful way to have the best impact. Now, this redrawing of the very boring word that everybody is just like paint drying, gerrymandered districts. It's just a real difficult situation to explain to people.
Well, I know it's hard to explain, and we're going to try to explain a little bit, not so much about gerrymandering because it's been around forever, but in the last decade or so, and the lawsuits around not only the state districts, but the congressional districts and the makeup of the Ohio legislature and the representatives. So the fact that the districts are drawn in such a way that most of the districts wind up being a GOP district because it's drawn by GOP leadership. But I'm glad you mentioned it because there were a couple of statewide initiatives to change the Constitution in order to fix that gerrymandering or make the districts more fair. And the fact that that it happened twice, and the legislature was basically sued into doing it right. The Supreme Court said, do it over and over, 2-3 times, and they still didn't do it. I want to say a word of appreciation to you for bringing to my attention, although I am a subscriber of the New Yorker magazine, the article by Jane Mayer about a week ago that talks about Ohio being the bullseye of basically torching democracy because of that very thing.
Right. And that interview was with the former Ohio Democrat Party chair, David Pepper, in regard to his book. But his point is so prevalent because this was a reaction to having Barack Obama as our president. And this was a reaction nationwide from the Republican Party, in a fear that maybe we would become a more enlightened nation, you know,
Heaven forbid.
More inclusive, heaven forbid, right? Tongue placed firmly in my cheek, of sarcasm there. But so in order to fight against moving toward a more inclusive nation, the Republican Party chose to go state by state, slowly, and Ohio was affected the most, and taking over the state houses and understanding that if you take over the elected officials that draw the lines, that you can have a gerrymandered state that is extreme and that does not listen to what the people want in the state. We are legislating right now in the state house to an extreme minority of people because the way the unconstitutional lines have been drawn.
So let me
For
get-
example,
Okay.
my district
Okay.
used to be contiguous and beautiful and compact, is now the 59th district, which goes from Youngstown to Hanoverton. And if you don't know the differences there, you're taking a small rural community and an urban center. With the district is totally different, and the needs are going to be extreme.
Right.
But they've done that so that they can have a competitive, so they can draw it for an extreme person to walk in there and legislate.
Right, right. So the electorate or the population of Ohio is probably about 50-50, right? Or if you say
around.
or if you say Democrats versus Republicans, because let's say there's about a third of people that are independent, so they're neither. But of the Democrats and Republicans, it's still roughly equal if it's 48-52 or 49-51, right? So the Supreme Court and the Constitution mandated that the legislature draw the lines. So it's about 49-50 on each side as far as who can be represented.
Right.
And the fact that it's so changed to basically be unconstitutional, then we have this extreme representation or out of balance representation. For example, there's 99 districts. How many of them are Republican and how many are Democrat?
Right, like 68 Republican and 30 something, yeah.
Right, right. So and the same is true with the
And
federal
in the Senate,
districts.
there's 33 senators, and only 8 of those 33 are Democrats, and they're fighting to hold. For example, my husband Bob Hagan is running for the 33rd Senate seat. The gerrymandered districts, to keep it extreme, threw in Carroll County at the bottom of it to give the incumbent, Mike Ruley, a 10-point advantage. So for him to get into the race, just to begin with, there's a 10-point disadvantage because the way the unconstitutional drawing of the line. And these maps were rejected 5 times by the Ohio Supreme Court. 5 times.
5 times.
They should have held the governor, the Secretary of State, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate. They should have held them in contempt of court, which they threatened, but they didn't do. They should have thrown them in jail because it's unconstitutional what they did. Because the constitutional amendment that was put on the ballot, the Citizens Initiative, passed with 70% of the vote from the people in the state of Ohio that said we want fair districts in this state. And they just thumbed their nose at us as voters. They really said, we don't have to do it. We're going to run the clock out and we're going to wait until it's too late. And then we're going to have all these unconstitutional districts in place, and extremists are going to get in there. And there's not going to be any pushback from the Democrats, and the moderates won't be in there, and there'll be just extreme legislation that keeps going further and further away from what we want as citizens in this nation and
you
this
said
state.
You said something important. You said we're going to run out the clock, and they did run out the clock, and so therefore their last statement was, or the Supreme Court said, had to relent because we're running out of time. We have to have an election. We don't have time to change or fix it now. We got to go forward with what exists. And the response from the leadership was to the Democrats, too bad, so sad, you lose. Go drink warm milk or something like that. I have to pull up the quote and put it on the screen. But
I'm sure that was Representative Bill Seitz. Yeah, it was like some ridiculous comment. Yeah, but that's exactly what we see, Mike, and it's so disrespectful. There's no decorum left, and because they can, they do, and with an extreme, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Ooh.
And that's exactly where we are in this legislature when you have draconian bills that just put women in traps. I mean, it's just horrible what we've done. You have a 10-year-old who has to leave the state of Ohio because there are no exceptions for rape or incest, and a 10-year-old has to leave Ohio to take care of a situation that happened because of a rape. And you have legislators like Gene Schmidt who said rape is an opportunity to bring a life into this world. Are you kidding me?
Let me put you on pause for a second, because you're referring to the 10-year-old who was raped and had to seek an abortion across state lines, and they're going to want to charge her and everybody involved. And they changed the law after Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court. They had a trigger law to make a heartbeat bill here. So where most people get this type of procedure around 15 to 19 weeks, they pulled it back and said,
6
after
weeks.
6 weeks, or once there's a heartbeat, nothing can happen. And 87% of people who got an abortion got it with 15 weeks or less. But now they pushed what was, I guess, moderate to the extreme, as you said. And I think it's important for people to understand what's going on with the extremes.
And there's no exception for rape or incest. And truthfully, Mike, the life of the mother is not taken into consideration either. And situations where a fetal anomaly, like a tubal pregnancy, happens, or the fetus is no longer viable halfway through the pregnancy, the OBGYN cannot help this woman until they call their lawyer, until they figure out if they were going to go to jail, if they're going to lose their medical license. So they watch. It's horrible what we're doing to our medical professionals. Now they have to watch one of their patients hemorrhage and possibly die in front of them before they can proceed with medical medical advances that they have been trained to take care and help people. We've gotten so far away from what we should be doing and how we should just be protecting advancements in medical technology that we've had.
So we're talking about Ohio, but this obviously has national implications, and what Ohio does is replicated around the country, or what extremists are doing in one part of the country, say Florida, Texas, or others. It's replicated around the country. So what I'm going to do here is take a short break, and when I come back, I want to talk a little bit about how legislatures are copying each other and what that means for the upcoming general election.
Okay.
Be right back. So welcome back. Talking with Michele Lepore-Hagan. She's a state representative from the 58th district. That's now the 59th.
But it's gone now, yeah.
It's gone.
It's blown up.
Because of gerrymandering. We were talking about the extreme districts, and we didn't talk about representatives in Congress where there's only 2 out of 15 that are or 3 out of 15 that are Democrat, and those districts change, and the imbalance. So if you're talking about 12 out of 15 are one way and 3 out of 15 are another way, it's nowhere near the 49-50% that it should be according to the Ohio Constitution. So much for the law and order GOP. And I'm not saying that for partisan reasons. I'm just saying because that's the facts. And there's going to be a legislative update. We're going to do a commercial for that so the community can understand what's going on with redistricting, the court cases, and how we should proceed. But I wanted to real quickly talk about the other bills, the other things that Ohio is doing or has done that are replicated around the country. We're talking about the abortion thing, the heartbeat bill. We have to stand your ground, and guns in school. How has it been for you as a legislator to be there while these bills are being crafted, and how do we get our voice, a voice of the other side, a voice of reason, whether it's progressive? I don't know, we want to label it, but I'm not sure how teachers feel about carrying guns in classrooms. Most of the ones I talk to think it's a ridiculous idea, and yet you're sitting there with people who are saying this is a great idea, we put it in the law.
Our legislatures and our state houses, we set the democracy for our state. Mm-hmm. And if it's unbalanced, like you said, then we are not listening or reacting or responding to what the majority of the people want in the state. When you have a bill that was introduced in a committee, rushed out of committee on the floor of the House, Ohio House, then rushed over to the Senate, then back to us at 4 o'clock in the morning, then thrown to the governor's office, and he signs it into law before people have any idea of what's happening. Now, teachers, not only teachers, cafeteria workers, janitors, bus drivers, administrators, all can have a gun. With only 24 hours of training, they can carry a gun into their schools. That's insane. And we didn't, everyone was pushing back on this, but it didn't matter because we have an unbalanced legislature right now that is responding to an extremist point of view that is just pushing this legislation through. And the governor is willingly going along with it and signing these into law as soon as he can.
So it's easy to see how people get jaded and disengage from the legislative process and from politics because they feel like it's hopeless. So
thank you for bringing that up, because that's the point that I just have to say. I love this state and I love America, and we all do. And I love our democracy. But I am going to fight. I am not going to not vote. I am make sure that everyone I know understands that we have to have our voices heard. We have to get out and we have to vote. And we have to stand up. And like my husband, for example, he's jumping into a race where he has 10-point disadvantage because the other side needs to be heard. Our voices need to be heard. You have to be able to stand up and say, this is wrong. Ask any teacher I know, and I'm related to many of them. My children and my parents were both teachers, are appalled at this legislation. And also, taking women's rights away from them, putting handguns in classrooms, stand your ground legislation, concealed carry, where you don't have to tell a police officer that you have a concealed gun. FOP was
the police didn't like that.
The police were like begging us not to pass this forward, and we did because of the right-wing agenda, the extremist agenda that's happening across the nation. And you alluded to that. These are laws that are being drafted by the Koch brothers and the ALEC organization that's sharing them across the nation. And they send them to states that have been gerrymandered, boringly gotten there after 10 and 20 years of working, chipping away at it. Now they have control. And they can do what they want. And this extremist legislation is coming here, and we're passing it.
So listen,
and everyone's like, "What's happening? What's happening?"
So I think you really brought home a point where I'm going to switch to national, but the January 6th insurrection was really about trying to get the legislature to send it back to state legislatures.
Yes.
So
exactly.
Because they have been gerrymandered. So if the states have anything to say, they will say whatever they're told.
It's code. It's code for send it back to the states. Right. What that means.
States' rights.
Yeah. Right.
Oh my goodness.
Right. It's the extremists' rights, and it's a plan like I said at the earlier section of this interview. It was a plan as a backlash to when President Obama was in office. And it was a way to take control and take control of it in a right-wing extremist fashion.
So on the national level, though, last week was really pretty powerful because notwithstanding the gridlock in Congress, there was some pretty big legislation signed by President Biden. The Inflation Reduction Act with the big climate control. There was veterans, burn pit that went and unemployment is down. It's like
senior citizens medication,
being able to
prescription drugs
to negotiate.
Right.
And although that's just for senior citizens, it's a lot. There are a lot of us.
Right. Exactly. And the bill will actually not cost, like the
Oh, right, it's a reduction.
It will not cost us money. It will actually save us.
Right, it's a $300 billion in deficit reduction. So
Yeah.
I guess there is some progress, and I think what people, because if you're disengaged or you're just overcharged with, I'm not going to pay attention anymore, and you only hear the top line, it's important that some of these top lines of progress are out there.
Well, the extremists, hopefully what will happen is that this extreme push will just it'll be a clarion call, a clarion call to women, you know.
I think women are going to make the difference in the fall. I think. I don't know.
Well, you know, my daughter has less rights than my son. You know, my daughter has less rights in the state of Ohio than a handgun. Think about it. Our daughters, you know, all of the women of childbearing age that I know and all of my constituents that have reached out to me can't sleep at night. You know, and they want to start a family. They're afraid. They're afraid of what happens if there's, you know, something that goes wrong with the pregnancy. Will they die? Will the doctors, you know, be put in a situation where they'll lose their medical professional license that they've worked to get? You know, and suddenly the legislators now in this extreme environment in the state house in the state of Ohio, the legislators think they know more than medical professionals, than educators, than scientists when it comes to environmental issues, and then, you know, our police officers that are there to protect us. You know, we think that we can make the decisions over people that have knowledge and that have experiences in these fields. I don't know more than a doctor. We have one medical professional in the legislature, and it's a woman, and she's a Democrat, and she's the chair of the health committee that I sit on, and she's the only one who has medical professional that has the knowledge to make a decision, not me, or, you know, a bunch of guys in Columbus.
Right. So we're hopefully going to be empowered by the fact that, okay, although there seems to be things that are out of our control, there are still things that are within our control. You know, for example, make sure that we're registered to vote, make sure that we hold our local politicians accountable, make sure that we talk to them. We're talking to you, and we certainly invite others as well, not just Democrats. We invite Republicans as well, and we hope they come speak to us and let people know what's going on so we can make an informed decision.
Well, and let me respond to that, because that's what we have now. But if we don't act, that may be gone. Right now what we have is this is the tip of the iceberg. Taking away a woman's right. What's next? Take away contraception. What's next? Take away the prevention methods. What's next? Teenage pregnancies are going to be on the rise. African American women are going to be, African American maternal mortality is
it's already high,
horrendous, and it's already going. That is scary. That's really scary. This is first. What's next? All of the things: gay marriage, your right to vote. That can be just diminished.
It's already been diminished, but
it's been diminished, and also the ballot initiative is another thing that could go. It could go away. You know, if we know that 80% of the people in the state of Ohio think that women should have a choice about when to start a family, abortion access to start a family, 81% of the people believe that there should be some type of Roe v. Wade in existence in Ohio. But the legislature, the extreme legislature, is saying no, and in cases of rape and incest and mother's life, you know, forget it. No, we're going to be really extreme over on this end. But we can say, okay, we're going to take it and we're going to put it right to the people. We're going to take it as a ballot initiative, citizens initiative, and we're going to put it on the ballot, and you come out and you vote as a citizen, and everyone has an equal vote, and we take it out of the legislature. Well, you know what? That process is in danger of going away. Because the extremists, the next thing they'll do is take a ballot initiative away. Right.
And that's what they did when Obamacare was available to the states, and several states said no. And then I don't know if it was Kansas or Wisconsin, where the people said, we're going to vote for it anyway. And they said yes. And then the legislature still said, no, or let's wait, and they did everything they can to push it back. But that's another thing. So,
Oh my God.
that's another thing. But I
Could
did.
go on and on. I know.
Right. So I want to thank you for your time today, Representative Michele Lepore-Hagan. Thank you for your service, 8 years in the state legislature. We're very proud of you and your representing us. We certainly appreciate you keeping us informed, and we'll, keep you in the loop because your family, your husband, a former legislator and perhaps a future one, I know he's a candidate, we'll have him on, and his opponent, so we can talk about what's going on. And we'll do it at the state level as well. I'm part of the Ohio Black Media Collective, so you may be seeing this on a statewide website where we talk about these issues. We're inviting Governor DeWine and his opponent. We're inviting Representative Ryan and J.D. Vance. If they show up, they show up. If they don't, people know that they've been invited. That's the most important thing. So I want to thank our audience, thank our guests, thank our production team. We're having a good time here at the Buckeye Review. And just remember that you do have your voice, and your vote is your power. So I want to encourage you to use it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much too. And I want to just say it's been just an honor to represent this community, and it's been really people like you, Mike, that made it just really special. And thank you for everything you do. And really, it's so imperative that we vote. It's so imperative. I could cry, but I'm not going to. We're going to
Don't cry.
Celebrate in our beautiful democracy. So make sure we vote.
That's right. And remember, we do have power because our words, right? People say, I can't, it won't work. So our words are signposts telling the world where our life is going. So if you say, I can't, I can't. But if you say, I can or I will, then you will. So say it.
To believe, yes.
That's right. All right. Thanks so much. We're out.
Thank you.
Peace.